So, hello, one and all. I'm Susan Fales-Hill, former vice chair of the board of American Ballet Theater, currently chair of the Trustee Emerita Council, and most importantly, lifelong ABT groupie. Other people say, I'm with the band. I say, I'm with the ballet company. ABT is 80 years old this year, and I plan to be 80 years old and still following them around the world.
Misty Copeland. I am a principal dancer here with American Ballet Theater.
Hi everyone, I'm Calvin Roy III, and I'm a soloist with American Ballet Theater.
So, hello you guys, it's great to see you. And today we have the great pleasure of talking about what was going to be a historic, groundbreaking, never before in the history of ballet performance of the two of you playing the leads in Romeo and Juliet, Macmillan's groundbreaking 1965 ballet. It will happen one day, but it's not happening right now. I wanted to start off, a lot of people, this has been played by so many just extraordinary pairings. The first performance was with Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev in 1965. Of course, Alessandra Ferri made it her own with Julio Bocca. And now it would be the two of you. People often think when they go and see, it's such a sexy, sensual ballet. People leave the theater convinced that the two people playing the principal roles are having an affair. So the first thing I want to do is set the record straight that that's not the case with you two. But I do want you to talk about your relationship, when you met, how you've been not only friends, but mentors to each other and creative partners. So please let us into your friendship.
You know, what's really difficult is that Calvin and I didn't even get an opportunity to step into the studio and start working on the roles together, it's a little devastating, but I know that it's going to happen. It's going to happen in the future. But, you know, I met Calvin when he barely started dancing because he started dancing at a late age, as well as I did. And I just remember hearing about him and seeing him in the studio company. And I remember one time in particular, we had met and talked before, but I remember walking past Studio 5 and he was doing it like a solo. It was very contemporary work. And I remember calling, like he came out to breathe or something, and I called him over and I was just like, you are stunning. And for me, you know, I've been in the company now for approaching 20 years, and there are very few talents like yours, Calvin. And as a Black man, to not be typecasted as the over-sexualized, you know, only capable of one thing, like you hold yourself like a prince, and I've always seen that in you. And every opportunity that I've had to do outside gigs or bring another dancer with me, like you are always the one I think of, because I know how important it is, not just representation, but to showcase your talent and to use my platform to showcase people that I think deserve to be there.
That's incredible. I thank you, Misty, first of all. I have been with ABT now for, I don't know, I would say going on 14 years, 15 years now. I can't believe the time.
You started the summer intensive, didn't you?
I came to the JKO school first, and then I did the summer intensive later. But I remember vividly meeting Misty when I first joined the company, and she was amazing. Just what at the time, you know, I think she was probably, you were still a soloist, I think, Misty, and there was a conversation that we had, and you were still kind of figuring out like where you were, what your next steps were, and you know, what you wanted to represent in ABT as a Black woman. And I just remember having this conversation with you, and it made me feel in that moment that, wow, like I'm not here alone in this. And over the years, us getting to work together outside of ABT has, for me, opened up my eyes to see kind of what the possibility of affecting and impacting lives can do just by us coming together and collaborating and using our not just what we look like on the outside, but using our talent and our artistry to change lives and open up people's minds and perceptions of what it means to be a dancer, an artist. And so I think being able to have someone like you in the company at ABT throughout all of these years has, one, been an inspiration for me, but it's allowed me to aspire to see how much further I can go and how many more lives I can reach and touch.
I know the two of you had a big impact with the pas de deux that you did from Cinderella that you did together someplace. And we're going to get more into the impact that this will have when you dance Romeo and Juliet together. But first, let's talk about each of your relationship to this ballet itself, which is one of the greatest. Please tell me, each of you, when did you first see it? And what roles did you first play in it? Because I think both of you have been up the ladder from village town person to harlots to Mercutio, if I'm not mistaken. So tell me a bit about your relationship to the piece.
It quickly became one of my favorite ballets. I remember I'd only been dancing for 4 years before I came to ABT and joined the company. So there were still so many ballets I had not seen. Mm-hmm. And I think the first time I saw it, I was on the stage dancing in it. Which was pretty spectacular, you know, like just looking back and in the time I felt the same way. You know, you're on stage with these unbelievable artists and learning.
Who was on stage with you?
I don't remember the first, but I mean, it was in the beginning, it was Alessandra Ferri, it was Amanda McCarrow, it was Julie Kent, Ashley Tuttle. There were so many incredible artists, Susan Jaffe, like they were doing it right before my very eyes. But the first roles that I performed within Romeo and Juliet were a townsperson. I was the one that came down the stairs with the broom, the first and I probably
a long way from the broom.
I come a long way from the broom towns lady. And then I also was one of Juliet's friends, the one that gets to flirt with Romeo and has a little pirouette step with him. And then I ended up being the lead harlot. That was the last part I did before I did Juliet. And I did lead harlot. I mean, at that moment, I never imagined I'd be doing Juliet at all. And so it was like, wow, I'm doing the lead harlot with Angel Correa and Roberto Bolle and all of these incredible Romeos, thinking there's no way I will ever dance that role with them. And then to go on and dance Juliet in Milan at La Scala with Roberto Bolle was just mind-blowing. Like, to this day, I'm still like, I can't believe that happened, and I have that experience, and all of those experiences have built me into the Juliet that I am today, and I'm so grateful for it. And I can't wait to dive in with my experiences and come into the studio with Calvin and share those experiences.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be incredible. And for you, Calvin?
Yeah, so before I even joined ABT, I was an extra in Romeo and Juliet, and that was kind of my first exposure to Romeo and Juliet. I played one of the little, it was me with 4 other guys who carried on the carriages, all of the guests that come to the ballroom scene. So a lot of my first impressions of Romeo and Juliet was really being on stage and watching from the wings, probably seeing Misty out there dancing in some of those performances. And I just remember, you know, from that first note of the music of the orchestra and seeing all these incredible dancers dancing these roles, I knew that I wanted to one day just be out there dancing. And so over the years, once I got into ABT, seeing Romeos like Marcelo Gomez and Roberto Bolle and Angel Correa, and the list goes on and on. There was something in me that was so drawn to the role of Romeo, and I just inside wanted to dance it one day.
So what draws you to the role?
I think it's this this sense of self-discovery. Like, For me, in my own life, like figuring out what my identity is, figuring out, you know, what love is, figuring out so many things. And Romeo is a young guy, and so I think for me, being able to portray this role as a Black man on the Met stage with ABT, for me, it seemed like such a big moment to step into that light and be able to do that in such a big way. And so I think for me, it's always been that sort of dream to want to be there and do it and show that it's possible.
Yeah, it's the ultimate romantic role. And to Misty's point, Black men are either made comedic or over-sexualized brutes. So,
Or the villain. So it's like, you know, being able to step into that light in this way and show the world that it's possible, that there can be another version of what we think of a Black man.
well, although I have to say, in terms of villains, you made a great Von Rothbard.
I was thinking.
Misty, what would this performance have meant to you, and what will it mean to you when it ultimately takes place?
There's so many layers to like the things I've thought about, and how not only our community, like the Black community, but just the ballet community, how it will hopefully, how it's possible to change the way you even look at Black love. You know, the way you look at, you know, it's just not often depicted, especially in ballet. And so I just think it's going to blow people's minds just by seeing two brown bodies in this romantic, passionate, young love that has nothing to do with the color of our skin. There are a lot of other obstacles in the story, and that's not one of them, finally. So, you know, I just think that it's just by having that visual, it just does so much for people that, you know, it doesn't have to be verbally articulated. And that's what's so powerful about art.
So, Calvin, this has really been a breakout, I would say, 18 months for you. You've been hailed by the New York Times as the most elegant male dancer in the company. And I think many people, spectators would concur. You've been hailed as destined for Mount Olympus.
No pressure, no pressure.
You're a god. And in a Vogue interview, our fearless leader, Kevin McKenzie, said he is ready for his Romeo. Mm-hmm. So what makes you think he saw in you this year that made him say that? And how is it that you yourself feel ready for your Romeo?
I think, I mean, Kevin has seen me since I was in the school at ABT. And I think over the last 18 months, I would say even the last 2 years, I've kind of found it in myself. I've seen how much I've grown. I found it in myself to start taking ownership of the work that I put in. You know, it's one thing to, you know, be modest and, oh no, thank you. But for both of us, for both Misty and I, and so many of the other dancers that we're in the company with, a lot of us have really worked our asses off to get to this point. And I think Kevin, especially in the meetings that we have together, whenever we talk about the future and things that are happening in the current season, I don't go in and just listen to what he has to say. Like, I go in and talk about things that maybe wasn't even on his agenda to talk about. And I think Romeo was something that I brought to Kevin as a role that I really aspired to do, probably going on 2 years. It was about 2 years ago that I first shared with him about Romeo. And, you know, I think from that point up until now, so much has happened. I've taken on so many just roles of leadership within the company and outside of ABT. And I feel like I've stepped into that light and been able to embrace who I am as an artist, what it is that I want to say, and also living kind of moment by moment too, and not being so you know, I'm hungry for it, but I'm not letting that get in the way of me actually enjoying the process. And so I think for myself, that's how I feel the most ready. I feel like I've worked for this, and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but I'm just
But
enjoying
that's a
the ride.
beautiful moment when
Yeah.
you own your place as an artist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's segue to your lives right now. What have you both been doing to keep that creativity flowing? It doesn't have to be dance related, but either or. I know, Misty, you've been doing some cooking.
Yes, a lot of cooking. No. I've actually been so busy, and a lot of that has not been being physical. I'm still somewhat recovering from an injury, so that's kind of been an interesting thing that's happened at the same time, where I've needed this time to rest. So it's kind of been good that we've been locked in, where I'm like, okay, I guess I can't get out of bed, which I shouldn't be. So, but apart from that, you know, I've just been staying creative, like through my production company. I'm working on a ton of different projects. And so writing is a very cathartic thing, especially for now in this moment to be doing. And then I helped to create and initiate Swans for Relief, which is a COVID-19 relief effort, bringing together dancers from all over the globe in major companies, and having ballerinas in those companies represent their company, and just uniting the ballet world, and I think setting an example for how the world should be reacting and really supporting one another. And it's been a beautiful thing to experience, you know, speaking to all of these artistic directors in each of these companies in the 14 countries that are a part of Swans for Relief, and that everyone's on board, because it's all for, like, we're all, you know, going for the same goal, and that's to support one another, to bring the arts, to keep it going, to keep people employed. And so it's been a beautiful experience in that way, that, you know, no matter what the world's going through in moments of crisis, it's just a part of our human nature to gravitate towards the arts. And I think that is such proof that we need it in schools, we need it in our lives in every way.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from all the cooking and baking I've been doing, and watching these amazing videos and footage that you've created, Misty, for Swans for Relief, personally, you know, in terms of creativity and in terms of keeping myself going, I also have been recovering from a minor injury that I got right before the pandemic hit. And so it's been a period of recovery, both physical, but also mental and emotional, and trying to sort of figure out what all of this means for the now, but also the future, and what we'll be up to in 6 months, 12 months from now. But before the pandemic hit, I've been in the process of creating a virtual reality project that centered around my journey to becoming Romeo, which is still in the works, now that we actually have some downtime to really dive into it. But a big thing for me lately, because I go through moments of feeling like I can conquer the day, and then some moments where I feel utterly helpless because I'm not out there on the front lines helping people and saving lives, that I've had to sort of take a step back and sort of evaluate myself and what it is that I can do to keep myself going each day. And that could be from meditating to, I write a lot, and I've been wanting to read more, which I never get a chance to do when I'm like running here, running there. So that's kind of been my way of coping with this moment. And hopefully once I pick myself to get myself together to be able to help in a bigger way, I definitely would love to do that. But I think for now, it's just allowing myself to take it day by day, and get myself motivated and in a creative headspace.
So through these challenging times, where do you find your inspiration?
It's
from what it was before.
Yeah, for me, it's definitely changed. again, like something that I've never really taken for granted is being surrounded by such incredible artists daily. And to be able to just spend my lunch like sitting outside of a studio and watching one of my peers dance is just an incredible privilege to have. And so, you know, I think it's just been finding it through different, like through my friends and through my colleagues and through dancers that maybe I'm making new connections with, especially with through Swans for Relief. That has been just so inspiring to see that we're all in this together and how many people do want to help one another. And it's that to me is motivating and inspirational, just the humanitarian that, you know, we're all finding in ourselves. And again, like to be able to step away from maybe what's happening in our government, but just see that there is promise in other parts of the world and that we as Americans can come together and be powerful in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when this all sort of started to unfold and seeing how the dance community in general sort of allied and partnered, and conversations are being had on social media, and people are wanting to create choreographies and fundraisers, and you know, being able to help and being able to really respond in our way through our art and creativity. Being able to see that has been an inspiration. But in my life outside of dance, I think this time has really brought family for me that I haven't had as much time to spend on a call or had enough time to just, you know, think about the future with, or plan, or things like this, or even set up a call and cook or bake something together. Like, these are the things that I have been missing so much. And I think this time has allowed us to come together in ways that have been blessings in disguise this whole time. So I can't wait to, again, do that all in person, but it's been keeping me going and keeping me hopeful for the future.
I've met your mom backstage, so I know you've been probably talking to her quite a bit.
Every day.
So, final questions for you. I know you're both very committed as artists to what your art can do in the world. So in the wake of all of this, what is your hope as artists that you will be able to do? And I know mentoring is important to both of you. And Misty, you just mentioned art in schools. So what are your thoughts in terms of the role that you have to play as artists when this is behind us and we need to rebuild?
I feel like it's been empowering for ABT in particular to allow for the dancers to really step up and take the lead in a lot of ways in this moment. I think that the fact that the ballet world is so far behind in terms of having a virtual presence, that this is really forcing the ballet community to kind of step up their game. And I think that we're only going to benefit from it. And I think that it's allowing for more people to see what we do all across the world, people that don't feel comfortable stepping into the Metropolitan Opera House, people that don't have the access to see ballet. I think that this is the perfect opportunity to broaden that audience. And so I hope that that's something that we take with us as a tool moving forward to keep ballet, to keep the arts alive, to keep live theater alive. And yeah, I don't know. I think that there are just so many ways that we can still continue to bring what we do to people, you know, whether it's going out to the community, you know, and performing outside with social distancing. Like, I think there are so many creative ways that we can still continue to enrich our art form as well as our communities and ourselves.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is that because we're so, we're kind of confined right now, when people they know that it's safe to go out, I think bringing dance, ballet to people outdoors, I think that's a big part of, I mean, being in nature is healing alone. So, you know, being able to open that up and find creative ways to get people, outside, bring people together in a way that it's safe, is going to be really important. But as artists, I think right now, like Misty was saying, people are taking, especially within our company and other companies, this role of leadership and how we can really expand our art form and push it into places that don't really have that access and see it on a daily basis. And I think now is the time that we really push it and open it up, so that when we do go back to the theater, when we do have live performances again, these people that are seeing it for the first time on a computer screen, they'll be more excited and inspired to come and get a ticket.
I'm seeing an ABT performance of the two of you in Central Park. Just
Yes.
Beautiful.
any words of advice for any aspiring dancers out there or young dancers out there?
Yeah, I think especially in this moment that it's okay to have those moments where you feel that it's not fair or that it's just really difficult for you. But I think that something to remember is that we're all in this together and we're all experiencing these moments, and all we can do is support one another and just stay as positive as possible. And I mean, who can say that in this time you get to be in Isabella Boylston's kitchen getting a private lesson from her? I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. So I think there are so many beautiful things about this moment that I wish I was their age and experiencing.
Yeah, for me, I would definitely say take it one day at a time, moment by moment. There's going to be days that are up. There's going to be days that you are finding yourself questioning, like, what's happening and where do we go from here? But like Misty said, we're all in this together, and we'll get through this together and come out on the other side of this, being able to support and help each other push everything forward into the future.
Well, I know I feel uplifted by everything all of you are doing, by watching all the work that you've put out there, and just by spending this sacred time with you today. Okay.
Bye. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you to all of us who joined today, and please consider supporting the company by donating to the ABT Crisis Relief Fund.